Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scary-ish podcast, where we're going to tell you some cool stuff today.
We are indeed. My woo is kind of weak. My voice is kind of shot right now. I think I'm getting a little sick, but that's okay.
Me too. I've been sneezing like nonstop, and my nose is running.
It's the holiday season. Everyone's passing around their germs.
Holiday season.
I hate you so much. And regardless, we're here to bring you some good stuff, and I'm excited about my topic. What are you doing this week, Robin?
I am going to do the Aurora Borealis.
Cool. I'm excited because I've seen it multiple times. I've been to Canada, Northern Ontario.
I've never seen it ever in my life.
Glorious, and we go way out into the middle of nowhere, so there's no lights whatsoever, and it's an amazing thing to see. I recommend everyone sees it at least once in their life. And I'm going to be covering a poltergeist, and I'll get to more information about which one. I don't even know if it's poltergeist technically. We'll get to it. But anyways, we're going to start off the episode like we normally do, which is by covering some homegrown horrors. And what are those, Robin?
So homegrown horrors are the stories of paranormal experiences that you've had or that your family's had, and they're just
fun.
Things. They're
weird,
fun.
creepy.
Fun, weird, creepy. Some of them are really scary. Some of them are so ridiculously funny. It's just what you guys share with us, and we get to share with everyone else.
Exactly. So if you want to share an experience that you've had, you can email storytime@scarish.com. You can also go to scarish.com, and there's a contact us button. You can fill out a form right there and send it directly to us. No big deal. On the contact us spot, there's actually our P.O. box too. So if you want to send us something, because a couple of you guys have been requesting to.
And it's Christmas.
And it's Christmas time, so whatever you want to do. No severed heads or explosives, like we always say. Or you can just email us. You can also go to facebook.com/Scary-ish podcast if you would like to message us there. If you want to join the Scary Spooky Friends group on Facebook, go ahead and do so. And you can post on that wall or whatever they call it for some instant feedback from the community. You can also join our Discord server. Best way to do that is to go to scarish.com, scroll down and on the right-hand side, you'll see the links for all of our social medias. Just click that and you will be joined to the Discord server instantaneously.
Yeah, all our social media is on there. So if you guys want, just go over there and clickety-click.
Indeed. You can also tweet at us at ScaryishPod, or you can message us on Instagram at ScaryishPodcast. We've been posting a lot more stuff on our Instagram. We took a trip out to Disney. Robin had her makeup professionally done by
awesome.
Friend of the show. What is her tag?
At Gabriella Halai.
And she's amazing. Her husband's an amazing tattoo artist. Check out his shit. His is Halai Inc., which is spelled.
It's not spelled how it sounds.
So spell it for us, because I don't want to mess it up.
I did it last time and it was really hard. Okay, so
it's spelled JALAYAHAY.Inc. And go check that out, or you can check out Gabriella, which is Gabriella GABRIELLAJALAYAHAY. Those are both their Instagram accounts. They do some pretty awesome stuff. So shout out to those guys for taking care of us and taking us around Disneyland, and we had a really fun time.
It was awesome.
They're
Great
friends.
photographers too.
Yeah, they are. They're friends, and it's just been an amazing time every time we go and hang out with them. So before we go into the topics, we're going to do these homegrown horrors. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I got my homegrown horror stuff right here in front of me. So am I starting or are you starting?
I'll do homegrown horror first.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So this email here is titled Childhood Witching, which seems really scary. So it goes, "Hey, Robin and Adam."
Hello.
Hey. I have a few experiences of paranormal and night terrors / reoccurring nightmares. I have never heard of the term witching hour and had to do research once I started listening to you guys on Spotify.
You're welcome. Shout out to Spotify.
Oh, God, you say that every time.
Well, they should get a shout out. They've helped us grow a lot.
I've grown up in old houses throughout my entire childhood, and I never thought about my experiences being any more than an out-of-control imagination. My earliest memories of paranormal encounters started when I was 6. I always got up at 3 a.m. in the need to go to the toilet. And since I'm scared of the dark, I yelled for my mom to turn on the lights in my room and the hallway as I could not reach the switches.
Shout out to your mom, because I'm sure every night at 3 a.m. hearing a child scream her name wasn't creepy at all.
Well, it's not screaming her name, it's just screaming mom.
Well, I mean, that's her name. Once you become a mom, your name becomes mom.
I also had her walk me down and back up to my room. Man, that's rough life. This continued every day for years. Holy crap, that's a rough life.
I'm telling you, shout out to this mom. That's a hardcore mom.
Eventually, my mother grew sick of getting up and just started ignoring my calls.
Wow.
I was 10 when I could finally reach all the light switches with ease, and decided to finally face my fears of the dark. I wake up at 3 a.m. like clockwork, needing to go to the loo. I get up from my bed only to feel something cold shove me against my chest, pushing me back down onto my bed. I screamed as I heard a loud thud towards the left of me, which indirectly woke up my mother as she stormed into my room and turned on the light. Little mapping of my room, I had a small bedside table to the left of my bed, a bookcase across from me, and a desk in the corner. As my eyes adjusted to the sudden light, I noticed my bedside table was flipped upside down.
Wow.
I started crying just from the shock. My mom started moving towards me to comfort me as the light flickered and we're left in the dark again. No. Big ol' no.
Yeah, that's super fucking creepy.
No.
The fact that your mom there, it makes me feel better for you, but being the parent in that situation, you've got to be like, oh, hell no, I'm getting out of this fucking house.
There was a huge crash, and I heard my own mother scream over my own. Ugh. I heard thudding like footsteps run down the hallway, and my light flickered back on again. I was met by my bookcase fallen over with the top barely missing the bed, and my mother slumped against the wall next to my desk as if she was pushed out of the way so this thing could run out of the room.
Wow.
We were both shaken, but my mom told me not to be scared as it could give it power to come back. After that night, nothing big seemed to happen other than continued sight of a large dark figure appearing at the end of the hallway.
Oh yeah, nothing big, just this fucking shadow monster.
Whenever I opened my door to go to the toilet, I always nope it, close my door, and hid under my blankets. Solid.
Yeah, I would do the same fucking thing. I would leave. Second, I mean, I would like not stay in that house if there was a shadow figure after that.
Sorry this is so long, and if it's hard to read, it wasn't long at all. Don't worry about it. I love the podcast, and I'm currently binge listening after my best friend introduced me. I'm a complete wuss to scary stuff / stories, so I enjoy listening. And I don't mind a few sleepless nights.
Complete wuss that grew up with like a shadow demon in your house.
Right?
That's hilarious.
Feel free to share this on the podcast and let me know if you want more of my experiences. Cheers, Brittany.
We do want more of your experiences, so thank you so much for sending that one in, because that one was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be like that. When it's like a story about like a 6 to 10-year-old, it's like, oh, like I saw something. I thought she was going to see something. I didn't think it was going to be like a full-blown experience with the parent in the room where it's like, don't be afraid, it'll give it power. It's like, holy shit.
So crazy.
That one was intense, and it escalated pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll move on to mine, and we'll see what this one's like. The subject of mine is spooky story time, and it starts out like this. Hi, Adam and Robin.
Hi.
Hello. My name is Molly, and I've been listening to your podcast on Spotify for a while now, and I love it. Shout out Spotify.
Oh, my goodness.
I thought I would send a story in since I've been thinking about it for a while, so here it is. When I was about 6 years old, both my grandma, in parentheses from my mom's side, and my grandpa from my dad's side were pretty sick. Growing up, whenever they would visit or we would visit them, they seemed really sick to me. I remember my grandma always being in hospitals and my grandpa always having to take medicine. So about the time I was 6, right before the new school year started, my grandma passed away. That's super sad. Both of my grandparents from both sides of the family lived in New Jersey, so we had to travel and stay with my aunt. My parents thought I was too young to go to the funeral, so I stayed home with my cousin, who was the same age as me at the time. The next day, in parentheses, and I'm not shitting you, my dad got a call from my grandma saying that my grandpa had passed away. So they passed away like very, very close together, and they're on different sides of the family, which is crazy. We ended up staying another week and went home. Through the next year, not a lot happened, except going through their things that were left behind from them and going through with the funeral. But when it was close to the 1-year anniversary from my grandma, my mom decided to take me and my sister up to New Jersey to see my aunt and to visit her grave. I never really knew anything about ghosts or spirits, and at the time I was so young. So one morning we were driving to the graveyard, and I remember seeing all these CDs that I remember being my grandma's because they were of her favorite singer. She had all of the CDs in this black clip thing to make them stick to her visor. So after visiting her grave, my aunt got into the car getting ready to drive when one of the CDs fell out. If my aunt would have sat down without looking, she probably would have cracked it. What none of us knew was that there was over 3 CDs in the visor and only one fell. My mom and my aunt were starting to get freaked out when they realized it was probably a sign from their mom saying that she recognized that they were here. They ended up playing the CD on the way home, and nothing like that ever happened again. The sad part is I never experienced anything from my grandpa, but I know my dad did. I'm still happy I was able to be there and see that happen, and I still remember that years later. Anyway, that's my story, and I hope you liked it, and that you'll share it on the podcast to show people that you can still stay in contact with your loved ones even though they passed. Thanks, and all the love and support, Molly.
Thank you so much, Molly.
We appreciate you sending that in. There's always these weird little coincidences that like kind of let you know like something's still there. And even if it's not something, it just makes you feel comforted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's always nice to hear about those things. And I think everyone has a small story like that. And if you don't, it's just nice to hear about them. So awesome. Thank you for sending it in. We appreciate that.
Cool.
So let's go ahead and move into the topics, I guess. So you said you're going to be doing the Northern Lights, right?
Yep. So I'm doing the Northern Lights.
So are you just covering what the Northern Lights are, or like...
I'm going over what they are and then legends and kind of like lore around
these
them.
fucking lights in the sky that people have seen for so long. And
yeah,
only
they shine
until
bright
recently,
like a diamond.
I hate you so much. And only until recently have we been able to say like, oh, it's actually like distortion from the magnetic field and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
you're ruining it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I have personally never seen the Northern Lights, also known as the Aurora Borealis, not to be confused with Sarah Bareilles.
Wow.
Well, I thought you were going to be like, really? Really?
I'm just in stunned silence by that joke because so many people get them confused. You know?
No, my sister just loves Sarah Bareilles. Okay, anyway, though I've never seen them, many have, and they've played a prominent role in a number of myths and legends across a whole slew of different cultures. And this week I'm going to share some of those legends.
Cool, do so.
So, the name Aurora Borealis was apparently coined by Galileo in 1619.
Galileo?
Galileo.
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 Figaro. Magnifico.
Oh.
Okay.
Copyright strike.
Anyway, so 1619. And it's supposed to be a Roman goddess of the dawn, literally like goddess of the dawn, Aurora. And the Greek name for wind, Boreas, I guess. And I'm not a historian. Here's a bunch of random history facts that you guys probably don't care about. But I think it's pretty cool how words and nomenclature
Wind of the
and
sun
stuff.
goddess or the dawn goddess.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
The light, yeah. Greeks and Romans even believed that Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, raced across the sky every day in her chariot, alerting her brother and sister to the breaking of each new day. And the light, sorry, this sounds super lame.
Just the way you look at me, I'm like, is there a joke coming up? I'm waiting
no.
for some other pun for some other singer that I never think about.
So the lights were created from her wake because she's rushing across the sky.
When you're in a chariot and it's kicking up dust, when she rides, it kicks up the Aurora Borealis.
Yeah. The Sarah Bareilles. Okay. So,
she's not going to write you a love song because you asked for it, Robin.
But I need one.
You see?
It's just going to be a whole episode. So,
I've been sitting here for 5 fucking minutes like, do you know any Sarah Bareilles songs? Think really hard on this one.
So I'm going to remind you guys that we're not historians, okay? We're not scientists. We're literally just two people that sit here and read about stuff and try to talk to you guys about it. And
I feel like you're giving us this disclaimer because you're about to tell us just a bunch of bullshit that's historically inaccurate.
Well, it's all just lore. It's all lore from all these different cultures that what they used to believe and stuff like that. So it's like
I don't think we need that super vehement disclaimer twice.
Oh,
we're not that bad at
telling
stories.
I'm really not good at explaining what exactly the lights are. Okay. So we don't have a real in-depth knowledge of these things. So if any of it is wrong, I apologize. If I don't describe it correctly, I'm sorry. It's just not what we do. The Northern Lights, if you don't know, are a natural display of lights in the sky that can usually be seen around the Arctic and Antarctic, known as the auroral zone, or they're like auroral ovals that move around the world.
I used to go to Canada once a year for about a week, and I used to see them when we were in Canada, and it was super cool. I had one experience when I was still living in Northwest Indiana where, and this is 100% true, I was super drunk. I fell down on the ground and staring up in the sky, I was like, I know I'm drunk, but I'm not hallucinating. It looks like I can see the Northern Lights right now. And I went down to this bonfire and I found someone. I was like, hey, look up. And we all looked up and I'm like, you see that, right? Like, I'm not fucking tripping balls right now. And they're like, no, what is that? I'm like, I think that's the Northern Lights. And we looked it up the next day and we found out like we could actually see it because every now and then you can see them at different places in the world.
You can look up online where your auroral oval is in which part of the world. So it does move around because, it's a circle.
It's
Goes
like
in a
the
circle.
movie Frequency with Jim Caviezel
Oh
and
my
Dennis
God.
Quaid. The
Let's
Aurora
watch
Borealis
that.
showed
I've never
up.
seen it.
Oh my God, that is such a good fucking movie. I love that movie. It's excellent. We're going to watch it. It's
Okay.
going on the list.
So the lights are created when the magnetosphere or our atmosphere.
Doesn't that sound made up? Magnetosphere?
Well, it's when our atmosphere is being affected by the planet's magnetic field and it's disturbed by a solar wind, which are charged electric particles, from the sun.
There's a probe going towards the sun right now. Did you know that?
Shut up.
It's sending back all these pictures of what the sun looks like the closer you get, and they're hoping it can make it as far into the sun as possible
before it burns
before
up.
it melts. But it's like you see all this shit just getting shot off the sun. It's a giant ball of fire and plasma,
Yeah.
So it's kicking all this shit off of it, and that stuff just keeps going because it's momentum in a vacuum, and then it hits our planet, and then that's so fucking cool to think about.
So it's all these particles that are from the sun that hit our atmosphere and react with our planet's magnetic field, and then these particles kind of interact with each other, and there's resulting ionization, which is where the charges of the different particles lose and gain electrons and stuff, and they just exchange a charge, and these exchanges result in light. And I think it's pretty cool. It's super sciencey.
I think you sounded really cool. Smart there. So I know you're giving all these disclaimers like we're not good at this
I've only
stuff.
taken chemistry 1 and 2.
Well, you're doing pretty well. Keep going.
Okay. Oh, and I've taken a couple physics classes too that have to do with electronic.
I've taken
fields,
astrology, and right now Neptune is in retrograde. I don't know how that shit works.
I don't understand the whole retrograde thing. What is that even?
I have no idea. I'm a Taurus.
No one still has explained yeet to me.
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
10 people.
There's constellation yeet.
I'm dying.
I can't use that fucking that laugh because the cough is just fucking ear bursting.
Okay. It's really cool how much science goes in to a natural phenomenon like this. Like all the natural stuff that happens around us, science.
Because you have to explain it somehow.
Right. But they didn't used to have science. They didn't have scientists that went like, yes, magnetic fields.
They're like, yes, demons. Yes, the chariot sun dawn goddess, whatever.
Pretty much. And, but it's just like, who goes around and is like, probably electric charged particles. That's what it is. It's like.
I think if you observe a phenomenon on a small scale and you see something similar, you're like, maybe, just maybe.
I'm sure there's someone out there that knows the exact name to who the first person was that was like electric fields. Or
I know
whatever.
who it is.
Oh, who is it?
Sarah Bareilles.
Get out. Anyway, the lights appear in a whole bunch of different colors. And they're gorgeous. Pictures of it are so pretty. And I wish I could see it for myself, just seeing how it like glides across the sky or however it looks.
I've tried to take pictures of it, but I've only had like cell phone cameras, and it's really hard to get that much light into the shutter of a cell phone camera.
Right.
Because it just takes a picture of like, you probably could.
Right.
But when I was going up there, I went there 8 years in a row from like 2003 to like 2011. And I haven't gone in like 8 years. So it's sad. I just realized how sad that is. But yeah, it's really hard to get pictures of it, but it's so fucking cool. It's absolutely gorgeous.
I need to see it one of these days. But did you know there's also a thing called proton auroras?
Of course I did.
Yeah, and proton auroras are also known as aurora australis.
Are they from Australia?
No, they're like the southern lights.
Oh, well, okay. That makes sense.
So,
oh my God, the southern lights? You get it? Like northern lights? It's like the brother or sister of the northern lights.
I've never heard of that before, and
I bet you our friends from the southern hemisphere are all like, what the fuck are the northern lights? I've never heard of this before. Who's Sarah Bareilles?
I think that's more likely. All I know is that these lights appear at lower latitudes, so closer to the equator. And it seems like scientists have figured out the science around the existence of these beautiful, colorful lights. But before that, different cultures had their own beliefs about their occurrence, because back then they didn't have scientists with their microscopes.
And it's just some incredible phenomenon.
Right. And it's especially the places that never see them. And it's like one rare occurrence. And then they're like, fucking.
What was that?
Yeah. So let's start in northern Scandinavia, Iceland, and Greenland. And talk about those places real quick.
Iceland is green and Greenland is ice.
Which is really cool. Yeah, it's like the opposites.
They named it opposites. They're like, let's send these fucking morons to the wrong place. Hashtag original troll. Suck our dick.
So Icelandic.
I'm pretty sure I read exactly that in the history book.
Okay, it's really late again, and we're all like giggly tired again. We are so sorry. Icelandic ancestors associated the lights with childbirth. So as long as mothers didn't look at the lights during childbirth, the pain would be minimized. And if the mother did look, the child had a chance to come out cross-eyed.
That's fucked up. That's a weird thing to think.
And I honestly laughed when I was reading this because it just reminded me of that IT Crowd episode where Roy tries to raise money to like give attention to boss-eyedness.
Oh my God.
And I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, IT Crowd is amazing.
It's
that
so good.
episode is just so funny.
It's only like 3 seasons long too.
Yeah, but Roy's just like wants to get with this chick, and her brother is boss-eyed.
What's boss-eyed for those of them who don't know?
It's cross-eyed.
Yeah,
it's
just what
your
they
eyes
say
are
across the
cross-eyed.
pond. My favorite fucking episode of that show is he runs in. He's an IT guy, obviously. He runs into you know it. What I'm gonna say already. He runs into a guy from high school, and every time he runs into him, it looks like he is someone who washes windows on the sides of buildings.
He's a window cleaner.
And he keeps trying to tell him, like, no, I'm not a window cleaner. And it's the whole fucking episode. Things just keep happening, and it's so funny. And at the end, he finally convinces him, like, I'm not a fucking window cleaner. I work IT for this business. And he's like, cool. And he asks him, like, so do you work on, like, what iOS do you work on?
No, he asks if he works with Apple or something.
He's like, no, I mostly work with Windows. And then he's like, hello? It's such a fucking funny show.
It's just such a good show, especially if you're like geeky and nerdy like we are, where you're just
Have you tried turning it on and back off, or off and back on again?
Have you tried turning it off and
on
again?
And then that's it. Like every IT
so
phone call
funny.
ends with that.
You guys should watch it. It's really good. Continuing on from our TV tangent, Greenland is a bit more sad when it comes to their idea of the lights. And the lights are thought to be the souls of stillborn babies or babies that die at birth. And those are like their spirits.
So are these considered Scandinavian countries? Is that like the grouping, like how certain countries are like Pacific Islander countries? I don't know what to group Iceland and Greenland together to say. What the fuck, these countries? Why are these so weird?
The Inuits of Greenland believed that the lights were the spirits of the dead playing celestial games with a walrus skull.
What? Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay. Still pretty weird.
While some other communities in the same area thought it was vice versa, where it's a walrus, like a group of walruses playing with a human skull.
This is so fucking weird.
I don't know how they come up with this stuff.
I just imagine these groups of people meeting each other and like, oh, look, the walruses are playing with human skulls again. And someone looks at them and they're like, you mean the humans are playing with the walrus skull again? And then the wars start after that.
It's just so morbid. I just want to know why they went to that conclusion.
That's what the season of Vikings is about, right? I don't know. I don't watch that show.
In Finland, it's thought that the lights were caused by a Firefox, and no, not the internet browser.
I hate that browser.
What?
Mozilla can suck my nuts. Google Chrome all the way.
Yeah, Google Chrome now, but back in the day, it was like either you had Internet Explorer or you had Firefox.
That's very true. Once Google
Firefox
Chrome showed up, once incognito mode showed up, I'm like, what?
How else am I going to watch my porn?
Exactly. I tried telling someone, like, dude, they created incognito mode. They're like, I'm sure they didn't create it for porn. I was like, what else did they make it for? They're like, so you don't save your cookies? I'm like, yeah, it's porn, bro. Everyone knows it.
Or, I mean, it's something where it's like, I'm researching something that's really awkward and I don't want anyone to know.
Yeah, it's like I'm researching...
What is this red rash?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Good to know what you fucking research.
No.
Is there anything I need to know?
Shut up. Anyway.
Did you know that Tumblr got rid of all adult content today?
Yeah, it's very disappointing.
I won't tell you how I know that, but I know that. So
when Yahoo first bought out Tumblr, I was like, why can't I see my not safe for work shit? I was like, where did it all go? And
where did it all go?
You had to physically go and find exactly what you were looking for, like the exact name of the page
the at
you were
blah,
searching.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yes. And I was just like, What? Okay.
At dwarf sucking horse balls or whatever.
It's like it made it so hard, and now they're taking not safe for work stuff off of Tumblr. What else do you use Tumblr for?
What's so funny is I realized it because I was like, "What the fuck is going on? This isn't working." And then one of the pages I follow that is safe for work just put a tombstone that said "R.I.P. Tumblr committed suicide."
Seriously?
And I was like, "What the fuck?" So I googled it, and it's like, "Oh, they removed all the adult content." I'm sure you guys are just thrilled to hear this. Realistically, I think most of you either knew about this or are very disappointed.
Someone
hearing
needs
this
to
right
make
now.
a meme, if it's not already been made, of that little clip from an anime where it's the guy with the butterfly that says like, "Is this whatever?"
Yeah.
And have it just be like, "Is this porn?"
And it's just Tumblr.
Oh man, I can't. Because people were saying like they were making things that weren't not safe for work, mark them as not safe.
They mark
It's
like
just
fucking everything.
Whatever.
All that's
Tumblr.
left on my Tumblr now is like Star Wars stuff and my Sarah Bareilles fan page, and that is it.
I haven't even gone on Tumblr since, because I honestly only use it for certain fandoms, like all my Korean drama and anime stuff. But other than the other stuff.
This is a long tangent. It's telling you guys way too much about us.
Yeah, but sorry, Tumblr, get your shit together. Bring back prawn, okay?
Bring back hashtag bring back prawn.
Anyway, so Firefox. So in Finland, they thought the lights were caused by a firefox.
Spreading your cookies all over the sky.
No. And it was like kind of named after the Arctic fox, the super cute Arctic fox. But it ran so quickly across the snow that their tail caused sparks to fly from the snow into the sky and caused the lights.
That's cool. I
It's
like
kinda
that
cute.
one.
The Finnish word for the northern lights is revontule, which translates to firefox. Kind of cool. I don't know if that's true. Finnish, hit us up.
Let us know.
And then there's the Sami people of the Finnish Lapland, who claim the lights to be created from a shower of water that's ejected from the whale, the blowhole thing.
There's a really, really good meme online of like a bird landing on the water, and then it shows you a giant zoom out.
He's like,
and the
I can't breathe.
The bird's a tiny speck, but it's sitting directly on a blowhole of a whale, and the whale just says, "I can't breathe." I saw that and I was like, that's so cute. Then I thought, like, whales don't breathe in through their blowholes. They're called blowholes, not suckholes.
Where do you think they breathe from?
They don't breathe in through their blowholes. They fucking shoot their breath out. That's why it expels.
And then they take air back in.
No. Fuck off. Get it right out of here. I need to Google some shit, obviously. I thought they just breathed in through their mouths. They just came above the water and they're like, oh, much better. It makes more fucking sense that way. A blowhole is tiny. Don't fucking make fun of me.
I'm just like, wait a second. Now we need to know how whales breathe.
How do whales breathe?
Wait, hold on. I need to know how whales breathe. I can't.
I hope I'm right. I hope so badly
Google
I'm right.
Okay.
You keep going and I'm going to Google this.
Okay. So, how do whales breathe? Shit. So the Sami people thought it was from the shower of water that came from whales. And then this isn't necessarily a good thing to them, though, because apparently the lights were a bad omen. And it was believed that you shouldn't talk about them. You don't, tease the lights by waving, whistling, or singing under them, or you'll alert them to your presence, which I think is so creepy. And this honestly is the creepiest tale out of all of them. So if the lights notice you, they might decide to take you up into the sky, or maybe even slice your head off or beat you to death. I was just like, what the fuck? These lights are so messed up. And
interrupting. Okay. I'm sorry. I Googled, do whales breathe through their mouth? Which was, as I put in do whales, first thing that popped up. Do they breathe through their mouth? So I'm not the only moron out there. Okay. And Google answered me with how dolphins breathe. Fuck you, Google. But if you scroll down a little bit, it says, can whales breathe underwater? Obviously not. That's why they come to the top.
They don't have gills.
That's the stupid question. But it says, in order to inhale and exhale, whales breathe through their blowholes, which are located. I don't need to know where a fucking blowhole is. I know where it is.
Okay.
But that's just really upsetting.
I told you.
Why do they have such big fucking mouths then? Just to eat shit?
Yeah, to eat.
Oh, wow. God, what a waste of a creature, man. Like, that mouth is so big. How do you take in that much fucking air through the blowhole? And they come above the water and they blow the air out and then they inhale before they go back down? It seems like a lot of work.
Have you ever been whale watching?
No.
Okay, this explains a lot.
Fucking Indiana, dude. There's no whales in Lake Michigan.
Because how it's like the whale comes up, blows through their blowhole, right? And then swims a little more and then comes up again.
I didn't know they come up again. I thought they just breached, blew, and then went back under. I figured they came up and they took a breath with their giant fucking mouths to fill their giant fucking lungs.
Oh my God.
And then went back under.
You need to go whale watching or something. Oh, God.
I heard whale watching is the same thing as sitting on a boat and watching just a fucking ocean surface for like 8 hours and getting really disappointed. I hear all my friends that have gone whale watching or dolphin watching or whatever have all been like nothing showed up. It sucked.
Did they go to Hawaii?
I don't know where they went. Probably Florida, to be
Have you
honest.
looked at my pictures on Facebook? I
Yeah.
literally have a
You're
folder.
such an emo kid.
I literally have a folder that's named like whale watching. And it's just pictures of fucking whales.
I figured it'd be
doing
pictures of
their
the
blowhole
ocean, so I've
thing.
never looked at that album.
Okay. Anyway, going back to the Northern Lights. There's even a Sami riddle telling of a man being taken away from Earth by an aurora, which is crazy. And to this day, Sami stay indoors when the Northern Lights are overhead just to be safe. So they keep their kids indoors and everything, and tell them to keep down. I honestly, like, this story was the scariest one of all because I was like, really? They still keep their kids inside and stuff? It's just creepy. In Sweden, the lights are seen as bringing good news. So back in the day, it was thought that the lights were a gift from the gods to bring warmth and light to the earth. And other areas thought that it was a reflection from large shoals of herring that meant a good catch for the fishermen, and farmers thought it meant a good harvest was to come.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's very aquatic.
Aquatic?
You know, it has to do with like fishing.
Oh.
It has to do with, aqua, the sea.
Like
Speaking
whales?
of which, Aquaman comes out on Thursday, and I'm kind of excited about that.
We don't even have tickets.
I know. We'll get some.
Okay.
Did you know the reason they don't breathe through their mouths is because their esophagus and their airway are not connected? So it's too complicated. They have to use their blowhole.
Are you still looking up whales?
I feel so fucking dumb. I need to educate myself now.
I grew up in Hawaii, so that's why I know about whales.
Okay, I feel less bad, Moana.
So
Keep going.
I just want to sing Moana song. Oh, you're welcome.
Don't you fucking dare.
Okay, so Estonians believe that the aurora that lit the skies were sleighs taking guests to wedding celebrations in the heavens.
That one's cool. I
Yeah.
like that one a lot.
There's a lot of different beliefs and so many different beliefs that it just blows my mind. What I thought was really, really cool and was one of my favorite things about going over researching all these different legends was the fact that the Vikings' descendants wrote manuscripts during the Middle Ages, only one of which mentioned the Northern Lights directly, and it was called the King's Mirror. And that was the only one
The King's Mirror.
Yeah, that mentioned the Northern Lights specifically. Be that as it may, there were others that spoke of a phenomenon eerily similar to that of the Northern Lights.
Phenomenon. Also a movie with a light in the sky. Just saying. Hashtag John Travolta.
Oh, phenomena. Right?
Phenomenon.
Phenomenon. Phenomenon.
Okay.
Okay, so the Bridge of the Gods, or the Bifrost, or Bifrost.
Bifrost? Oh,
Hell
like,
yeah,
oh,
motherfucker,
shit.
Bifrost. I just got really excited when I saw Bifrost, because to me it's like, I love Thor, and
As soon
it's
as I
just
hear
so
Bifrost, I'm like, how the fuck did he know where they were? He gets his new hammer and he just knows where they are on Earth. He has never been to Wakanda. Fuck you, Avengers Infinity War. I'm sorry. I'm just really bitter. Can't wait for
He's
the
a
next one.
god.
Whatever. He can suck my nuts. Even he has limitations. Heimdall was the one who could see everything and knew where everyone was. He doesn't have that power. Okay, let's just keep going.
I'm sure many of you guys have watched Thor or have read bits and pieces of Norse mythology. And you've probably heard of Asgard and Odin and all those.
Midgard,
Yeah.
which is Earth.
This bridge was described as going from Earth to the heavens and was covered in flames having 3 colors. Look at that. Like, hello.
You're way too excited.
It's so cool. It's just, I was so excited because I was like, this sounds so much like the Northern Lights. You know what I mean?
That's
It's
very
so
true.
cool.
Holy shit, I never thought of that.
Yeah. And
I don't know. Are you going to get to the colors later on? The colors that you typically see?
what colors do you
So
typically
I've
see?
seen it in green, mostly green, and then shades of like pinkish red.
Yeah.
And it like interchanges. And then I've also seen it in like clear, not clear. Obviously, you wouldn't see it.
Like white?
Like white, yeah. So it's like that's what I saw when I was still like in Northwest Indiana. I saw mainly white lights, but back in Canada,
don't walk into the light.
I hate you so much. I saw like mostly green, like super bright green and like reddish pink. So that's what I've seen most of the time. So I could see them being like, "Fuck yeah, Stairway to Heaven, Rainbow Road."
In a number of different stories, the bridge is described as being doused in fire of different colors, and even in one particular passage was said to be described as a rainbow even.
Yep. Like,
yeah,
I
how
mean, it's
cool
called
is
the
that?
Rainbow Bridge, right? The Bifrost? Isn't
yeah.
that what it's supposed to be called?
No,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just making shit up
Other
now.
legends
Mario Kart Norse mythology intermingled in my brain for some reason.
Other legends describe Valkyries, female warriors on horseback, that you probably see in Thor 3.
Ragnarok, yep.
Yeah. But they wore armor and carried shields and were tasked to fight for Valhalla. Holla, holla.
Wow.
Sorry. Legends.
There's some Viking out there who's just so disgusted with us right now. Like, I knew I shouldn't have listened to podcasts. That is not a fucking Viking sound. That is a turkey. You have to stop doing that fucking sound.
I can't.
It makes no sense.
Witness me.
I hate you so much.
Legends tell of the sky illuminating by the reflections of the Valkyries' armor as they rode to Odin. And some sources I've read say that the farther south the lights are seen, the more they appear a deeper red. Because in Norse mythology, they had a lot of red in the skies and red surrounded by all the battles and stuff like that. So the further south you get, the more red the lights get.
Right on.
And some people that I read about, they were saying that it depends on how much electric activity is in the air. So back then, there wasn't a lot. And so it was more red. But now that there's way more going on now, that's why it's more green, and might be why the further up north you were in Canada it was white or whatever that you saw,
it was further south. It was white.
Oh, I thought you said
in
red.
the Chicagoland area. It was white. It was
I don't know.
Greenish red. It was green and red, mostly green up north. I've heard the further north you get, the more green it is, and that's why most of the pictures you see of it being green are from like the poles.
Okay.
And it just depends on like where it's at, and like.
And then red is more south. I don't know. There were so many different things I read. Seriously, guys, I read so much.
There's no way to tell though, because like I saw it in Northwest Indiana and it was white, so it's like who the fuck knows?
It's very confusing.
Someone ask Odin, who by the way is dramatically underpowered in the Marvel universe. I'm just saying he's like one of the most powerful fucking things. He could totally take on Thanos, which by the way I think is why Infinity War happened after he died.
Wow.
He dies, Ragnarok happens, and then Thanos shows up. Just fucking saying. Shout out to Odin.
Okay. So, at times, it was thought that the red color of the lights meant bad things were coming. In the late 18th century, supposedly weeks before the monarchy was overthrown during the French Revolution, a bright red aurora was seen over England and Scotland, and it was even reported that some people heard the sound of armies battling in the skies.
That's cool.
Which is neat because people have reported hearing like crackling and stuff. From the lights, which I think is really cool.
Because it's like an electric reaction.
Yeah, and they thought that it foretold of impending war and death by hearing this stuff and seeing the red lights. Scots called the lights merry dancers, MERRY dancers,
like happy dancers.
But the dancers were not happy. The dancers were supposedly actual fallen angels or warriors engaged in battle in the sky. And in the Hebrides of Scotland, they have this thing called bloodstones, apparently. And please, if we have any Scottish listeners out there, let me know if it's true or not. But apparently they have these stones that are speckled in red. It's believed by some that those red specks were drops of blood that fell from the skies during the battles of the Merry Dancers.
Oh, shit. That's a really cool legend.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, there's so many of these that are
really
really cool.
gross and really creepy, but I think it's really cool.
Oh, man, maybe that's why they have freckles. They're all covered in blood.
Wow, that's an interesting one. And also hella racist, bro.
That's not what I'm going for. Shut up. As for some North American tales, there are Native American stories and those from Eskimo tribes as well. And in this part of the world, it seemed to be common to believe that the Northern Lights were part of some sort of circle of life. And it wasn't all happy-go-lucky because the circle of life obviously includes death and stuff.
So
right?
It gets triggered when that guy holds Simba in the air and then Elton John plays in the background.
Oh, that movie's gonna be so
Cannot
sad.
wait to see that shit
This is the second
again.
episode in a row where we've talked about Lion King.
I talk about movies every fucking episode. I can't help it.
Anyway, some Native Americans told of the Northern Lights as torches held by spirits leading souls to the other side.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's thought that a whistling sound you might hear is the lights trying to communicate with those on Earth. And in order to reply, you had to whisper.
Oh, wow.
So it's like whispering with the lights.
So you'd hear a whistling sound that would sound in as much whistling form as, yo, dog, delete my browser history. And you had to whisper back like, no.
That's so fucked up. Is that what I'm going to have to do when you die?
I mean, probably.
Okay, that's fucked up.
I won't know.
I'm going to have to destroy your other hard drive.
Yeah, you will. You're going to have to burn that thing. I'm pretty sure you're going to have a ceremony on that thing.
Oh my god. It's like an exorcism.
Yes.
Eskimo tribes believed that they could speak with their dead relatives this way. So they thought that they could summon the lights and then speak to their spirits. They could
summon the lights.
Yeah.
That's super. Imagine like a fucking person who said that they could summon the lights, but only took jobs randomly right before the Northern Lights showed up. So it would seem like they're straight up fucking legit.
What?
That would be cool. Just saying, it's like a good idea for a story.
Man.
There you go. Writing prompt. Enjoy that. Call it Frequency 2.
The Cree Indians also believed in that as well. So not Frequency 2, in the ability to speak with the lights. When dogs barked at the lights, it was thought that they recognized their lost companions within them.
Aw.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. In Canada, the Hudson Bay Inuits believed that the auroras were torches of the dead carrying them on their way to heaven. Seems like it's a pretty common idea.
It's always connected, obviously, to heaven because it's in the sky.
Right. Oh, man. There's a song prompt in there that I'm missing.
Ghost Riders in the Sky, Stairway to Heaven, one of those, I don't know.
The Saltos, Salteaus Indians of eastern Canada, the Kwakiutl, Kwakiutl, and Tlingit of southeastern Alaska interpreted the lights as dancing human spirits, whereas Eskimos near the Yukon River believed them to be dancing animal spirits like deer, seals, salmon, and beluga.
Right on.
In northern Michigan, Algonquin tribes believed that the creator of Earth, Nanabozo, Nanabozo, moved to the north and lit a big fire. And the lights are the reflection of his fire, letting people know that although he was far, he was still thinking of them.
Aww.
Yeah, that one's kind of cute. The Menominee Indians of Wisconsin believed that there were gentle giants that fished at night, and the lights were the torches that they carried. So some of these are kind of cute.
Yeah.
They're
definitely
also
getting
sorry,
better
Wisconsin, for what happened this past week.
What? Oh, no, we're not sorry. Hashtag Go Bears. Hashtag King of the North.
And, I mean, with anything, there's always going to be a dark side to myths, and North American tales of the Northern Lights are no exception. Great Plains Indians thought them to be omens or evil reflections. They, too, thought that the lights were a reflection of large fires, just ones that weren't so happy. They thought it was of giant flames under huge cooking pots lit by northern tribes to cook their enemies.
I feel like the Northern Lights are it's like the biggest test of like the glass half empty, glass half full. Because some people are like, oh, look, it's like our ancestors, or it's something very benevolent. Some people are like, fucking demons, don't look at it, or your baby will be cross-eyed.
Because that's horrible, right?
Yeah, it's just like some people looked at it and thought it was something negative, and some people saw something beautiful. And it's like knowing what I know as a person who was born in 1985 and getting to see them when I, in the 2000s. It's like I got to appreciate the beauty of them. But imagine how fucking scary it would be if you had no idea what they were and they just showed up. I don't know. Like, it depends on who you are as a person, I guess.
Have you ever watched Ice Age?
No, I have not.
Oh, yeah. Put it on the list.
Oh, God.
I love Ice Age. Okay. I just think it's so weird that they were like, they're going to eat us. That's why they have their fires burning. And I just think, how fucked up is that? I don't remember cannibalism being that common between tribes way back in the day. You know what I mean?
Unless you're a Wendigo.
The Fox Indians of Wisconsin thought the lights were the spirits of their slain enemies trying to rise again in order to exact their revenge.
Oh, yes, the tribe that would look to the sky and then do the international suck it gesture repeatedly. Like, yeah, take that.
The lights were an omen of pestilence and war. Some Alaskan Inuit communities, such as the Point Barrow, feared the lights carried evil spirits within them, so they carried knives to ward themselves against such evil.
I will cut a bitch. I don't care if you're a sky light show cloud, whatever.
Auroral sightings in Asia are pretty rare, so when countries like China and Japan witness them, it's nothing short of miraculous, which is really cool. So they don't have like bad stories to go with it. It's like, holy crap, this happens once in a blue moon.
Right.
In Chinese legends, the lights were associated with dragons, and it would be a battle between good and evil, breathing fire between them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, which I think is really cool.
Dragons, especially in Chinese culture, look very different than the dragons that I think of, because they're usually more serpent-like.
When you look at the Northern Lights, like, you see how snaky it is.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
In Japanese culture, if a child is conceived below the Northern Lights, they'll be blessed with good looks, a good mind, and good fortune.
So conceived but not born.
Yeah.
So you
gotta bang under the Northern Lights.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look up. Let's do this.
I just want to say so many things that are inappropriate. Okay.
She looks up. She looks back down. You have a condom in your hand. You throw it in the trash.
Oh, my God. Stop. No, please. Safe sex, everyone.
You safe sex. But if you're trying to have a kid and the Northern Lights show up, throw that shit in the trash.
I just love how many different cultures explain the existence of all the lights. And it's the true science behind it is just as cool. It's not any less interesting. It's just less fantastical, I guess. But there was a point in 1859 where there were two telegraph operators who were able to communicate through the electromagnetic field of the aurora.
It's frequency. It's just like frequency.
Is it really?
Was it his dad and his son?
No. No. But I just think it's really cool, the science behind it. And I might have that wrong about the two telegraph operators communicating. I don't know how they actually did it because, again, I'm not a scientist. But it's so cool that they didn't have any of their electricity running. They just were able to communicate through the air.
What's cool is, like, I can tell you that I grew up with a cell phone tower, like, 3 or 4 miles behind my house. Like, there was my house, there was, like, a few miles of cornfield, and then there was a cell phone tower. And it was fucking huge. It was enormous. And we got these, like, crappy CB radios when I was a kid. And I remember me, my brother, and his friend were out on our roof. And we got on it. And we were talking to people from, like, really fucking far away. And some dude was bitching at us because he's like, this is an emergency channel. Like, where are you guys at? And we're like, we're sitting on a roof in Valparaiso, Indiana. He's like, there's no way you could be talking to us unless you had, like, some setup like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, it's literally something we bought from fucking Walmart. And he's like, well, I don't know how you're boosting your signal. And we're like, well, there's a cell phone tower like 4 miles behind us. Maybe that's doing it. And the guy got really mad at us. So we just changed channels and looked for people to talk to. That's 100% true.
What? That is so cool.
So it just depends on like where shit is and like what could happen. I'm saying that I totally believe that these guys were able to communicate through the frequency of the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
I like using that word.
If you look up the Aurora Borealis on the interwebs, you can actually see the little snippet of the conversation between the two of them. And it was just, to me, maybe because I was so tired, but it was hilarious to read because it's just these two dudes that are like, hey, you turned your power off? And the other dude's like, yeah, I turned my power off. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can get it. Like, it was just like, it's so weird.
It sounds like people actually trying shit out.
Yeah, but it's just like, I feel like if it were these days, it wouldn't be so cut and dry where it's like, shall we get to work? You know, it's like, I don't know.
Send nudes.
Yeet.
Oh, I hate you so much.
Anyway,
Thick
so
with 2 C's.
Their conversation lasted for 2 hours using the current of the Aurora Borealis, which is so neat. I think it's so cool. Anyway, I hope that all of this was fun and interesting, and we had a lot of tangents. Sorry, but I had fun reading up on a lot of this stuff, and it was really neat. I really liked the whole Vikings thing. That was just mind blowing because I never put 2 and 2 together. So it was really cool. And legend and lore is always fun for me. I always like covering the topics that aren't necessarily like ghosts or haunted this, haunted that.
This one is really fun because it's something that we can kind of explain through science now, but we can identify how fantastical and like ridiculously amazing it is.
Right.
But then hearing about like what people thought it was before is just super cool. It's like when you think about like comets or like meteor showers or shit like that.
Yeah.
There's a Tunguska blast that I'm going to get to sooner or later, which like people like try and figure out what the fuck happened there.
Is that the one where the trees went everywhere?
Yes.
All right.
We're going to get to some of those things because those are bizarre phenomenon that we can kind of explain right now, but we'll see.
Okay.
John Travolta shows up. It's awesome.
Okay.
He moves all the trees with his mind.
So anyway, next time you guys see the Northern Lights or any aurora in general, I just hope you guys can imagine all the things that came before us, like what people before us thought. It's pretty cool.
I agree.
So yeah.
And shout out to anyone named Aurora or Borealis or Sarah Bareilles. Keep doing what you're doing.
I wish I knew more song lyrics so I could
I
say
don't know
more
anything
things.
else, but not going to write you a love song because you asked for it. Because you need one. And then I think she says, you see, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Right on. That was really good. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that immensely.
It was fun.
So I'm going to move on to mine now. And I will say this week, I truly had absolutely no clue what I wanted to cover. That's not to say like I didn't have any ideas. I had a bunch of ideas. Like I thought about doing aliens for a little while. And then like for some reason I couldn't remember what it was I wanted to cover. And also for some reason like 2 hours had gone by in an instant. And my anus really hurt, which is weird. So
What?
I don't know what happened there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's a
I'm
joke.
hoping you're going to get that joke. And then after that, I was like, wouldn't it be really cool to cover dragons? And I got really fucking excited. So I did some research. And of course, I had to accept that dragons aren't fucking real. What's funny is that the one thing I found was there was a case from China in 2014 where someone was fishing and drug up something that was 9 meters long, which is like 27 feet. And it looks just like a dragon. And it looks completely fucking real. They don't know. It looks like a dragon, like a straight up fucking dragon, like the Chinese like really long serpentine dragons. It had horns, it had like whiskers, and it was like hairy, but it was really wet and it was dead. And then they shipped it off to some research facility, and the Chinese government refused to give any word after that.
Wow.
And everyone's like, we don't know what the fuck it was. And I'm like, damn it, I need more information on this. But I had to tell myself like, stop it. Dragons aren't real. Rain of Fire is not going to happen. Matthew McConaughey's not going to be your friend. He's an asshole in that movie anyways.
It's a song of ice and fire anyway.
I hate you so much. But so I gave up on that one. And then I started looking up some lesser known cryptids, and nothing had like enough information for an episode unless my topic was just gonna be like, here's this thing, they have claws and red eyes, because everything fucking does, and then the end. So finally I decided like I'm gonna do a poltergeist or a haunted house, and I struck out on a couple of them because they're actually really recent of the ones I was finding, and it's just like, this happened, the police were called, the family moved out, and that's it. And I'm like, well, that doesn't fucking work. And then eventually I finally found one that local officials were at, and there was some skepticism after the fact, but there's a lot of shit documented on it. So I said, this seems scary-ish. So, dear listener, and I'm realizing I actually typed dead listener, which is kind of cool.
Wow, what the fuck?
Because we're a scary podcast. I present to you the Demon of Brownsville Road.
Oh, man.
What?
That's on my list.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not anymore. Scratch it off. So I hesitate to use that title because that is actually the title of the book written about this incident, but it has a nice ring to it. So obviously the normal disclaimer comes with this, that this could all be bullshit. But I'm going to get into supposedly what happened. So the events I'm about to tell you about take place over the course of 18 years. And I will say a couple of things. One, this one will get kind of sad at the end. Aww. And this one is kind of scary. So you brought the really fun and the really funny, and this one gets...
maybe I should have finished this out.
This one gets kind of scary. It's scary-ish, but there's certain parts of it that definitely gave me goosebumps, and I was like looking over my shoulders.
Shut up.
It's just, it's a decent story. So
I don't know. We already had a scare last week with the whole string and the wire moving by itself. And
oh, you mean during the live show?
Yeah.
That was super cool.
No.
And you were tipsy, so it's probably just, I don't know. It was probably you doing it with your brain. You didn't realize it because you were using the Force. So I'm going to keep going, though. So rather than tell this all Tarantino, I'm going to start at the beginning because after doing some research, I found out this was not an isolated incident. It took place over the course of many years. But we're going to start at the very beginning. So back in the late 1700s, there was a war going on called the Northwest Indian War. And I had actually heard of this before because I grew up in like, you know, the Midwest, and I remember it being called the Ohio War. I had heard of it in that context, even though it wasn't limited to the state of Ohio in the United States. It was limited to that area. And it's what you imagine when you're thinking about stuff like this. It's the settlers are at war with the Native Americans. There's lots of tragedy. There's lots of death. And this story takes place during that era. It starts out in March of 1792. So there was a plot of land with a home on it, and inside of that home lived a mother and 3 children. And this home was near Fort Pitt, and that's an area outside of western Pennsylvania, and it's closer to like, you know, Pittsburgh area, for those of you familiar with that area. So one night, what is described as basically a group of, quote, marauding Native American soldiers or warriors or however you want to call them, found the home, and they burst into it, and they killed the woman and her 3 young children. And They were eventually discovered and buried on the plot of land, which is essentially the front yard.
Wow. Okay.
So, as a side note, part of the skepticism that comes with this origin story of what's going to happen here is that, so it wasn't ordinary. It wasn't normal for Native Americans to kill women or children. I mean, most of the time, at most they would take them hostage and they would like auction them back to people. And they wouldn't even treat them as slaves. They usually like treated them like with respect because they were like, you know, not someone that you would normally like involve in warfare.
Warriors.
Exactly. But it said that this act was done to inspire terror in anyone who would attempt to settle in this area. So anyways, this is the point where we fast forward to 1909. So over 100 years have gone by. It's the beginning of the 20th century. And America at this point is a beacon of tolerance and acceptance in the world. Just kidding. I put LOL. Women and minorities, including Native Americans, weren't allowed to vote back in 1909. Looked up some of the history of voting because I knew it wasn't like anyone voting at that point.
Yeah.
But mainly just like white guys and landowners. And the restrictions on voting in this country are so fucking insanely disgusting.
Like what?
It was basically like you had to be rich and you had to own land. Otherwise, you didn't get a fucking vote. And for the longest time, it was like that. And it was like, even if you were white and like middle class, you still didn't get a fucking vote because
so dumb.
you don't have enough money to tell people what to do. So go fuck yourself. It was insane, man. And like eventually all this stuff started like fading away, and reading like all the things that people said to try and like say like, no, we shouldn't give these people the right to vote. It just makes you fucking just roll your eyes so goddamn hard to read that shit. So it's bizarre shit. It's 1909. That's what I'm getting at. So someone comes across this plot of land and thought, you know, it'd go great on this place where that horrific murder took place. A house.
Oh, good. Is this the plot of the Poltergeist?
No, it's not. So actually, this is the plot. This has actually inspired something else entirely. But construction began on the home that would eventually be given the address of 3406 Brownsville Road. And apparently, during the time that this place was being constructed, a laborer who was, of course, an immigrant, and it has to be said that it was an immigrant. I don't know why it's everywhere, but that's the case, was working on the construction of the home and became extremely jealous of this owner and his wife, who was apparently, and according to the terminology or parlance of the time, a smoking hot piece of ace.
What? That's what they said?
I mean, maybe that's not period correct terminology, but the point is he was like, yo, dog, I wish I had this house and that chick is my wife. I'ma curse this place.
Wow.
So he did. I mean, I'm not sure which curse he used, like whether or not it was the Cruciatus curse or whatever, or how he did it, but he cursed the F out of that place.
Avada-kedavra.
So it said that, I don't know how the fuck they know this shit. I don't know if the guy wrote a journal like, curse this plot of land today, but that's what the story is.
This house is cursed.
That's in my fucking script. Stop skipping
sorry.
ahead. Well, not that exact thing. Anyways, it said that the family who would live there would fall upon financial hardship, so it's very possible that this curse worked. And they would fall enough, they would be hard enough ships that their fancy lifestyle was going to be at risk. They weren't going to be upper class anymore. So they decided they're going to rent out some of the space in the home, because it's a very large home, to a doctor. And this doctor would use the space to perform, in parentheses, at the time, the illegal act of abortion.
Oh, shit. That's even worse.
Couple of side notes. Well, I mean, it's worse at the time. So a couple of side notes. At first, I thought this detail was one of those things people would toss in to try and make this sound like horrific to a specific group of people.
But you know he made people die.
Well, I'm going to keep going. So that's it. In my research, I found a few sites that actually fact-checked this story. They didn't do a whole lot of detailing on what they found, but they did link to a few different things. It was not Snopes. Snopes really doesn't cover a lot of these things, to be honest with you, unless it's like a specific article making like ridiculous claims. People haven't used Snopes on it, or Snopes hasn't done anything with it yet. So in my research, I did find out that this doctor, whose name they did not include, apparently did exist and operated in different places. He wasn't actually like having a specific doctor's office, like he was floating.
Cool.
And he did have a tarnished reputation due to performing illegal abortions. And this well-to-do family that had fallen on hard times thought this to be this egregious violation of societal norms. They were the people that were grasping their pearls like, why, I never, when the word abortion was spoken. But because they were so greedy and they wanted to keep their lifestyle, they wanted the money. So they're like, sure, do whatever, we don't care. Do this thing that we hate, but we're going to let you do it. So this gives you an idea of the desperation going on in this house, you know? So that's happening throughout the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s. And eventually the family would leave the house, and in 1941, the house was sold. Now, most sites state that the home was sold by the original owners, but I found that the house was actually sold through a sheriff's sale.
What's that?
A sheriff's sale is a public auction.
A share of sale?
No, sheriff's. SHERIFF''S.
All right.
Because it's basically been repossessed, most likely by the local authorities, because like some bank or any lender, like a mortgage lender, repossessed the property and is trying to like collect something from the actual thing that they repossessed.
Whatever happened to the doctor?
I mean, he eventually just found some other place. So they had the sheriff's sale. That's where it sold, and it was empty for a while. Whoever bought it did not redo it or fix it up. There's like, fuck it, I own it, so I'll have it for later. And the house was sold and just sat empty. So local kids would fuck around and sneak inside, like kids do, because they believed that the house was haunted. So these kids got this creepy vibe, because any place that's abandoned to a kid just equals haunted.
Yeah, but like, okay, the doctor was performing illegal.
That's the creepiest part about it, because I think back alley abortions, you think of like all the sanitary effects that could be had on a person's body
and
when
I'm
you're performing
so sure
that like incredibly
from it.
invasive surgery. So these kids are all going in there. It gets basically thought of as the haunted house, but eventually someone would buy it and make it livable again. And two families would live in this home very uneventfully, depending on who you believe, until December of 1988. Those families were, I believe, the Wagners and the Joyces. And I'm going to refer to them a few times. So the selling of the home, the family selling the home was the Joyces.
Okay.
These are the guys that live there. They're selling it. And December 1988, someone shows up and they want to buy it. So the incoming couple was Bob and Lisa Cranmer, and it's Lisa spelled Lesa. So I think I'm saying that right. And Cranmer, Carnmer. So these are the people that are like, we're gonna make this our home. They had 4 kids at the time: Jessica, who was 4, Bobby Jr., who was 3, David, who was 2, and Charles, who was 2 months when they moved into the home. And as a side note, that poor woman's vagina, because that's a kid every year. It's like you go through 9 months of carrying a kid, you pop it out. You get a couple months of rest. He's sticking it right back in there, and you're doing the whole thing over again 4 times in a row. So Bob was aware of this house. He had seen it when he was a youngling, and he claimed that it was his dream to own it. Those are his words. So when they got in there, Bob was super thrilled because he had grown up in the area, but he had joined the Army when he grew up, and he relocated frequently because of that, because that just happens when you're in the Army.
But he didn't think it was haunted growing up?
No, he was one of the people that just saw people living in it, you know? He wasn't like part of the crew where everyone was going in there because it was abandoned. He just saw people living there and thought like, wow, that's a gorgeous giant house. Like, people that live there must be really happy. But he moves away. And like, for anyone who's moved away that actually wants to go back home, it becomes your goal to eventually go back home. And part of his goal was like, I want to go back home, and I want to be doing so well that I can live in that house.
Like The Greatest Showman?
That's exactly what I thought of when I was thinking of this. Like, you find this place when you're a kid and you're like, that's going to show people I've made it. So he travels around, and he eventually gets out of the Army. He winds up in Whippany, New Jersey, and he had hoped to move back to that area eventually with his wife. And luckily for him, his job transfers him back to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So he's like super cool. He gets back there, and like right after getting back there, the house goes up for sale. So he felt
what
like,
are the odds?
Yeah, he felt like this is perfect. He's like, everything is coming up, Bob. So side note, he worked for AT&T. So cool. That's awesome for him. Yeah, he did. I mean, this is 1988. It's not that long ago.
Okay.
So, but he wasn't stupid. Like, he didn't go to the house and just go in full list price. It's like when you watch Property Brothers and Drew Scott is like, we're going to go in a little bit low and like negotiate from here. And you're like, sorry, what? I got lost in your eyes. Because I love that show. But Bob was smart. He lowballed the Joyces, and they immediately accepted his offer.
I believe
like, you go in and you're offering way less than list price, and people are like, cool, we'll take it. Move the fuck in right now. And
it's
Bob,
like they had that sign out front of their house that was like, not haunted.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought of too. So, and this is going to get worse. So Bob stated that they seemed eager to get out of the house, which seemed weird, especially since during the walkthrough of this home, he didn't pick up on the red flag that his son, Bobby Jr., had wandered off while they were looking through the house.
Shut up.
And they found him. Don't worry about that. But when they found him, he was terrified and hyperventilating.
Oh my gosh.
And that probably should have been a flag. He didn't say anything. He was freaking the fuck out and he couldn't breathe. But they said he looked like, and they put this all over. I didn't actually include it in my script because I thought it was too on the nose, but they said he looked like he had seen a ghost. And they were just like, oh, it must just be a new place. He's freaked out, but it didn't really mean much to him. But Lisa wasn't on cloud 9 like Bob. Despite having 4 kids and that super sore vagina, like, she thought the house is too big. Like, it's a family of 6. They might have more kids later on. Maybe they had already decided not to. But she just thought, like, house is too big. And she also told Bob, the house gives me the creeps. She didn't like it.
Okay.
So Bob was like, I understand. I am hearing you. I want to know that your opinion is valid and your opinion is important. And I'm obviously kidding because he bought the fucking house anyways. I mean, it was a fucking steal. Why wouldn't you?
How much was it?
I don't know, but he went it under list price and they took it. So fuck it. It's a huge house, you know? But Bob wasn't a total jerk off. He asked the Joyces something that people that are purchasing homes ask the owners anytime they can. He just asked them flat out. Did anyone die
in this home?
Is there anything wrong with the house?
Okay.
So he's not going straight to the supernatural. And when you ask someone like, is anything wrong with the house? You're typically expecting a response about the plumbing, maybe the electrical, maybe the foundation, and it's usually a reassurance that everything's okay.
Right.
You know? And like shit like that happens. It happens all the time when houses are sold. So if you ask someone, is there anything wrong with the house? Those are the responses you expect to hear. The Joyce's response was, nah, the house is fine. Catholic Mass was conducted several times in the living room.
What's Catholic Mass?
Like, everyone came over and performed Mass like you'd have at a Catholic church in their living room several times. And that's what they chose to respond to. Is the house okay? Or is there anything wrong with the house? Was like, yeah, we had Catholic Mass in the living room a few times. So that's, I mean, the natural response to that is like, what the fuck, dude? Like, that's just such a weird way to answer that question. And Bob does state he thought this was an odd response.
It is a weird response.
Like, as a side note, I wrote, no shit. So a few weeks in, some small stuff starts happening, but nothing too strange. And there's stuff that happens in all houses, like you hear noises, you say the house is settling, that type of stuff. There was a closet with a pull chain light in it. We've all seen pull chain lights.
No. Did it turn on and off itself?
No. Just listen.
Okay.
Like, there's a pull chain light. We've seen fans that have pull chain lights. But for whatever reason, like, this one would wrap itself around the light and it would never hang down. She'd always have to go in and like pull it down because it's just a weird thing, you know? And it's not typical demon behavior or anything, but items would be moved.
He's like, whoa, can't reach this one.
Right? They'd be moved and they wouldn't be where they were left. And that always gets chalked up to like, oh, you forgot where you put it. And that person that put it there is like, no, someone moved it, you know? And you just think the people you're living with are jerks because they keep picking your shit up and moving it. So the house had small little ticks like that. The lights would occasionally flicker, which, I mean, that happens in our house. And we're like, fuck, it's the electrical. That's just where your head goes, you know? And it's a new house. You're thinking like, I got fucked on this deal. So that happens. And the family even started to joke around that there was a spirit in the house, which is something that you kind of probably shouldn't joke about, especially in this case. So this is where things get a little bit more weird. So about a year after moving in, Bob is fucking around in the front yard. No, I do not know why. Probably because it's made up, but maybe he's burying a pet. Like, if I was writing the script to this and like we're about 20-30 minutes in, hopefully like 20 minutes in, and it's moving like at a good pace, some small animal that the audience wouldn't be too sad about losing would die mysteriously. Like, I wouldn't kill off the dog. It'd be like a hamster or gerbil, and he'd be burying it out in the front yard. I mean, I would like to do a bird, like maybe a canary for the old canary in the coal mine symbolism, but that's a bit heavy-handed. Anyways, he's fucking around in the front yard. It's his front yard. He can do whatever he wants. Maybe he's just digging holes for fun. So he finds a small metal box. I figured at this point you'd freak out because I said there were 4 bodies buried in the front yard. But you didn't. So I think you forgot about that part. But
oh my God, I did.
He finds a small metal box.
What's in the box?
So it's not the 4 skeletons, which are apparently also there. But he opens the box and he finds a bunch of Catholic religious items. Now, there's 2 things I'd like to say about this. The first one is that his family's not Catholic at all. And this comes up later on. And the second thing is, I don't know because it's not specified what are these items, but I picture a crucifix, rosary beads, because those are like the most commonly thought of things when I think of like Catholic symbolism. Maybe some communion wafers and some wine. Like, I don't fucking know. So he called up the Joyces and he was like, what is with this box in the front yard? And if you call a family who has sold you a house and you ask them something like, what is with this box buried in the front yard? The normal response to a question like that is, oh, it's a time capsule. Like, we put it there with some of our favorite items. That would make sense. Or like maybe, oh, our kid used to bury stuff. She must have taken that box from my room. I was wondering where that went.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something normal.
Exactly. So the Joyce's response was, the house is totally fine. First of all, I don't know why the fuck they're assuring them of that when they're asking about a box. And the second thing was, just put it back where you found it. So it's like you dig this thing up and you're like, what is this? They're like, the house is fine. Put it back now.
Wow.
That's just, I got cold chills again thinking about that. That's a red fucking flag. So time goes on. The seasons change. And this is a detail that...
Pages fly off the calendar.
That's what I'm seeing. Like, you're looking out the window and you're seeing snow come down. Then all of a sudden it gets sunny. Then all of a sudden it's really hot. And I don't know how that's symbolized. Probably heat waves. But what's going on now is something that has been detailed in multiple sites. It's happening at different parts. But it says that during these days, Lisa begins having issues, and 2 of the kids also start having issues. And I was like, what kind of issues? So I looked it up, and it's basically the only place I could find it listed as serious mental issues. So they're dealing with either depression or some sort of like mania, like lashing out, stuff like that. Does not detail which ones of the kids are having these issues, and I think we're going to figure it out later on, though. So the skeptical point of view from me, like mental issues or disorders or illnesses or diseases, anything that you want to call them,
it's possible to happen.
Yeah, and they're hereditary. So the kids having similar problems to the mother isn't in any way, shape, or form like outside of the realm of possibility. It's unfortunate. But the behavior manifesting in Lisa after moving into the house is odd because it wasn't something she ever had a history of. And I want you to remember that sentence because it was not something she had a history of. According to the stuff I've read, that could just be like flavor for the book or flavor for the story. But according to this, no history of that. So the family began to experience additional paranormal activity along with these things happening. They would find religious items missing because even though they weren't Catholic, it doesn't mean that they didn't have things. And when they discovered these things going missing, they'd be in different conditions from when they left. Most notably, any crucifixes that were in the home that were missing would be found bent out of shape.
Did they ever put the box back?
I'm sure he put the box back after that. They had rosary beads in the house, and when they would find them after they went missing, they would be destroyed. So these things are starting to add up to something really creepy. And time keeps going on. And Bobby Jr. begins to exhibit some strange behavior. Namely, he seemed scared around the house. And one night, the parents went to check on him in the middle of the night to see if he was okay, and they found his bedroom empty. And his room was in the dark. And they looked around the house, and they found him sleeping in a closet in the house with the light on because he refused to stay in his room.
Wow.
Because he was scared. And after that, they began to hear footsteps around the house where no one was.
Nope.
So things are starting to escalate, and then some shit pops off. So 2003, which is not that long ago, it's 15 years ago, the oldest son, which would be Bobby Jr., they only listed as the oldest son in all the stuff I found, attacked Bob Sr.
Wow.
And a scuffle ensued, and the cops get called. And it's not said who called the police, but at the time, Bob Sr. had an aunt of his, so she's going to be up there in age, living with the family. So I imagine something like that happens. If one of my aunts was in the house, she'd call the fucking cops. So the police came, and Bob Cranmer Sr. was arrested. The next morning,
Why
Bob's
him?
Because he was probably a minor at the time his kid was. Actually, we could probably do the math. I don't think his kid was a minor, but still, he's the one that gets arrested.
Okay.
So the next morning rolls around, and Bob's aunt was found in her bedroom, dead.
Oh my God! Did he murder her?
No, it was determined she died of natural causes. So if you're like, it was the demon, you need to check yourself because the coroner listed natural causes.
Yeah, but they labeled
not
that. I'm
supernatural causes. Ha 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 ha. I literally wrote down ha ha ha. So it's fucked up, right? There's all this shit pops off. They've been having this creepy shit escalate throughout this time, and as soon as that shit gets really escalated,
and
someone in the house
someone
passes
tries
away.
to help.
You don't know if it's the aunt trying to help, but you do know that the aunt is the one that passed away.
Ugh.
So after this outburst and the death in the same night, shit gets bad real quick. So Bob gets out of jail. Charges eventually get dropped. And over the next month, so this has taken place over the course of 15 years.
Okay.
And now over the course of the next 30 to 31 days, maybe 28 if it's February, who the fuck knows, footsteps could be heard loudly throughout the home. And it's no longer like the creepy, sneaky footsteps that we all think that gets creepy. It's loud, banging, running footsteps.
Shut up.
Imagine standing in a hallway and you hear something fucking charging at you and you can't see anything.
Shut up.
That's what these people are hearing now. And as a side note, I wrote, fuck that. So a noxious stench could be smelled in parts of the home. And in parentheses, I put, which is a sign in cases of a demonic presence, or in my case, having been to the bathroom. It's something that we've heard time and time before. They also began seeing, and this is funny because we got an email like this, they also began seeing what appeared to be a black, foggy cloud in parts of the home. And now I imagine them being at the end of the hallway anytime they try to come out in the middle of the night. And things are getting bad. The sound of rapping against the walls could be heard throughout the house. The family would shock awake from severe nightmares to discover scratches on their legs.
That's so crazy.
They began falling down randomly, which happens because people are clumsy. But these people were not clumsy hippos. They fell because they were being shoved randomly by an unseen force.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't mention this before because to this point it had not been relevant. But in the 90s, Bob became an elected official. He was first a councilman and then the county commissioner. He was well known throughout the community. He actually was kind of a celebrity because he's one of the people that Most people know their local, like, elected officials.
Do you think he made some sort of deal with some sort of entity to
You
get
immediately
that
go
way?
to Supernatural. No, he did not go to the crossroads and bury the thing, but who the fuck knows? Maybe he did.
Wait, maybe that's why they buried the thing in the ground.
I don't know. But why is this relevant? Why am I
Okay.
bringing this up now? Because the shit is going down now. It's yelling timber, and Bob decided he needed help. So his family's not Catholics. I mentioned that. But they did go to the Catholic Church for help. Because when you need something that's like an exorcism, you typically go to the Catholic Church. But he's not Catholic. So the person who did this on their behalf was Tom Murphy. And some of you, again, if you're from that area, might recognize that name. He was the mayor of Pittsburgh.
Wow.
The mayor of Pittsburgh went to the Catholic Church to appeal to them, and he went to the Bishop of Pittsburgh and was like,
What?
this family needs help. He's confirmed he did this. The Bishop of Pittsburgh confirmed he did this. They have his name listed, and he confirmed it too. So he goes, tells him the family needs help, and Father Ron Langwin, I think I'm saying that right, would be assigned to the house, basically. And he got himself a team, and he headed there, which is really weird when they describe it, because it's a team of priests and one, quote, lay person, which I think means they're not Catholic, but they're included. So I know a lot of people from the Penn State wound up going and being part of this case, and they later got famous, and I think they have a fucking TV show, and they talk about this being one of the most messed up things they were ever associated with. So they go, and, like, I just picture, like, a Batman dressing montage when, like, the priest is getting ready, but instead of, like, batarangs, it's, like, rosaries and holy water.
Yeah.
And instead of, like, a bat suit with nipples, he just slaps on, like, a white collar, which is better than anything with nipples, because let's be honest, those suits were ridiculous. But they came to the home. I hate you. Not when they're rubber. It doesn't make any sense. So they came to the home, and they performed what essentially amounts to an exorcism on the house itself. And during this time, prayers get read and holy water is thrown around the house, like we've all kind of seen those scenes in movies.
Yeah.
And according to Bob, when the walls had holy water thrown onto them, they began to ooze blood. And this is a direct quote from Bob.
No way.
Some of the areas, this is a direct quote from Bob, some of the areas where the blood was dripping were so far up, in parentheses, over 9 feet, that a person would have had to use a ladder to get there. Another interesting aspect was that it was only on the walls and not on the ceilings, so that if it were thrown up there, it would have been impossible to miss hitting the ceilings. It looked as if the walls were bleeding. As another side note, and this is really creepy.
Scary.
I was looking into another case that didn't pan out because it's very recent. And in that case, it's a separate incident. It's in South America. This same thing occurred. The walls started bleeding, and people heard about it. And the police were called to investigate, and it happened in front of the police, and the police were freaked out, and they called one of their scientists. I just imagine it's someone from the lab. That person went and was like, this is bullshit. It has to be a hoax. Someone has rigged these walls to bleed. So as soon as it happened, when someone started praying and throwing holy water on the walls, they took a fucking sample of the blood. They took it back to their lab, expecting that it was going to be animal, most likely pig. It was human blood. The walls were bleeding human blood. I have no fucking clue, but if you're doing a hoax, where the fuck are you getting human blood to put in your walls?
That's true.
So that person was just like, I don't know what to say anymore, and they completely backed off of it. They wanted nothing to do with that case. So the precedent is there for something like this to have happened, and it was human fucking blood. So when I read this one, I was like, I rolled my eyes, and then I was like, but in that case where they might have actually gotten proof, holy fuck, that's fucking creepy. So these rituals didn't just take care of the problem. It's not like they went in there, they exorcised the home, and everything ended. The crack team of house exorcisers, or whatever you call them, it took them 3 years.
3 years?
To cleanse the home. And at different points during this period, the family obviously still lived there. Lisa and 2 of her children were hospitalized at mental health facilities.
Wow.
Not at the same time, and I think this is like the snake eating its own tail. Like, this could have been a singular event, but they decided for whatever reason to, like, repeat it multiple times to try and, like, amp things up. And because these events are kind of out of order, it's kind of hard to know exactly when stuff happened. I try to go by Bob's accountings and stuff from the book. And even the book itself went through like 3 different editors.
Okay.
The last one didn't move things around as much. But like when you go through editors, they try and clean stuff up and they try and shift around your story to create a narrative. And so he would get pissed off and he'd find a new editor.
Okay.
And he was saying it felt like something was trying to stop him from releasing the story. He really felt that way. And we'll get to the book. So this happens over the course of 3 years. Lisa and 2 of her kids get hospitalized. So in 2006, 3 years have passed. Someone finally tells the family, this house is clean. Okay. And I had to Google that because I couldn't remember if it's clean or clear. Because I'm pretty sure in Ace Ventura, when he quotes her, he says clear. But I have to watch that too. So Bob did what anyone would do at this point. He started writing a book. because of all this shit. He decided, like, I'm going to fucking write this. And it took 8 years to come out, and I kind of detailed some of the difficulties he went through writing this book. So when he did that, more shit hit the fan.
Oh, gosh.
The book gets released in 2014. And
this is so recent.
The Joyces basically said that it was all bullshit. They didn't believe any of it. They didn't have any of those problems. It must be because, like, he's not as famous anymore because he's no longer an elected official or he's trying to get back into politics. And they basically just threw this dude right under the fucking bus.
Okay.
Without knowing anything that happened with his family. So the family that lived there before them said that they never had any problems as well. One of the Joyce children supposedly told Bob about a bunch of paranormal shit before they knew he was writing a book, because sometimes people ask you questions you don't know they're writing a book. That's where the fucking famous phrase, "you writing a book?" comes from, is when people ask too many questions.
Yeah.
So one of these daughters, I believe it was, from the Joyce family, told him about a bunch of stuff that happened, but in the period it took to get the book published, which was 8 years, she passed away.
Wow.
So no one could confirm with her. And he says one of the kids from the family before the Joyces, which was the Wagners, also told him about paranormal activity, but he recanted when the book came out because he didn't like how he made their family sound, because he made their family sound like they were hiding shit. And like they didn't disclose this stuff when things went down. And he said that he quoted the Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, who was like the matriarch of the family he bought the house from, later on when he asked her about the Wagners, because she told him the Wagners knew about it, and they lied to them. And they lied to them again in 1988 or 89, I forget which one it was, when they moved in, because they were contacted as well, and they acted like everything with the house was fine. And they're like, they knew this shit was going on. So it's a lot of back and forth. And it's funny because it's not people saying like, oh, I need money. They're just saying like, oh, you're full of shit that never happened. But we also kind of hate these people. And I know a couple people in my family said that something happened, but like, we're all mad at you. So it's just one of those things where something gets famous, something comes out, then all of a sudden, like, everyone comes after the person who wrote it.
Right.
So the Catholic Church, most notably Ron Langwin, the guy who was there performing the house exorcism for 3 years, supports the book and confirms all aspects of the story that we're told that speak of his involvement when he was there, which would include the accounts of the walls bleeding.
That's crazy.
The postscript to this story is not a particularly happy one.
Oh, no.
A year after release of the book in 2015... David Cranmer, which is Bob and Lisa's son, passed away. And it said he suddenly passed away. So I was curious how. And I do digging because I like to do research. And I couldn't find it anywhere. So I started looking up local newspaper articles. And I found that David was actually a Marine. And he served in the Iraq War. So when I found that out, I felt like I needed to find out if he died in the line of duty. Like, I really wanted to know. Like, did he die, like, on the battlefield? And it bothered me. And I was like, I'm going to find this because no one's talking about it. So, sadly, I found his obituary, and I found that on March 10th, 2015, he passed away, and I had to do more digging because the obituary doesn't mention it. Wow. And I started to get a bad feeling about this.
Oh, no.
And I found out by looking into it because his dad, Bob, did an interview with the local newspaper because David actually took his own life.
Oh, what?
And Bob was spoken to by this newspaper about it because of the outrageous military suicide rate, which is a quote from him, because so many of our military take their own lives. And he was trying to get investigation into the psych meds his son had been prescribed. I read this and it said he was taking like severe antipsychotic and antidepressive medication. And he had not exhibited any signs of like that he needed that shit up till then. And like even digging into this article, he was listed as having no suicidal tendencies prior to his death. Just like that sentence about his mom, like no history of it up to that point. And then all of a sudden he took his own life. And Lisa Kramer went into a depression after her son's passing, which I can't even begin to imagine what that's like to lose a child. And this year in 2018, so this is not long at all, Bob and Lisa ended their marriage. They were married for 37 years. They were married for 4 years longer than I am alive. So that's just super sad. And to wrap this up, Bob still owns the home.
What?
And his plans for the future are to turn it into a bed and breakfast in 2019. So if you're
what
patient
an asshat.
And you want to stay in a creepy place, next year you might have your shot. And like that's the story of the demon of Brownsville Road. So it's like this bizarre story, and much like that episode 21, where you find out like after the book all this other stuff happened, like same thing happens here. It's a little bit different because the other one was even worse. But this one's still really sad. Like it is. And like on a personal note, I have a lot of friends and family that are ex-military or current active military.
Yeah.
So reading that, like when I saw that he was in the military, I felt like I had to look it up, and I was hesitant about bringing it up on the show. But like we have a very open fan base and listener base, and you guys understand stuff like this, and like it's something that I wanted to bring up because like what military do, active and former military do, is not easy. So that's why we always say thanks for your service. It's not just something you say to a military person to let them know, like, I acknowledge you were in the military. You should literally be thanking them for what they did. And I've done that to just about everyone I've ever met that tells me they were in the military. And some people are like, I didn't do anything. Like, I just was in the Marines or I was in the military or the Army or whatever for a few years and then I got out.
Yeah, I sometimes I'll text my sister on Veterans Day, like, Happy Veterans Day.
And it's, you know, it's something that we just do. And I think you have to understand, like, it's easier to just be there for them than to thank them. And just like be an anchor for them back in like the world that they left for a little while. And you don't have to be the person who's like, I'm here if you're having dark thoughts, you know? It's just like everyone kind of needs someone there. And when people need someone there, it's like it's a good thing to be that person. Like even if you are there, it can still happen. I'm not saying that his family wasn't there for him. It's just it's a very real thing. And we talk a lot about mental health care. So yeah, that's the end of The Demon of Brownsville Road. So definitely ends on a sad note, but I just wanted to make sure I told the full story of what I found because I don't want you guys to say I left something out because I think that's why you guys tune in. Like I try and do my research and I try and make sure you guys know everything that happens. So that's everything I have. So I think that's just about everything that we're going to have for episode 54 unless I left anything out,
that's
Robin.
Good.
Cool. So if you guys want to reach out to us with your paranormal or spiritual or funny stories, you can email storytime@scarish.com. You can also go to scarish.com and fill out the contact us form. That has our P.O. box on it too. So if you want to send us something, it's right there. No severed heads, no explosives, none of that shit.
Yeah. And we have all our social media links on there. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything just a click away.
It's the best way to get to our Discord server as well. If you want to message us on Facebook, it's facebook.com/scarishpodcast. You can also join the Scarish Spooky Friends group. And you can post your story there and you can get some instant feedback from the community. You can tweet at us at ScarishPod and you can talk to us on Instagram at ScarishPodcast. And if you want to give us some money, Robin, how do people do that?
So we have a Patreon, patreon.com/ScarishPodcast. If you guys want to go there, we do have a couple different tiers. There are some physical merchandise tiers too, where I actually hand make buttons and charms and stuff and mail them out to you lovely spooky friends. And then there's our one-time donations, coffee.com, ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast. Those are all donations that'll go to upgrading our studio setup.
Indeed, we'll have some upgrades coming in very soon. And last but not least, if you guys want to watch us record the Storytime episodes live, we do that every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is the West Coast time. And that'll be changing eventually because Robin will have a new semester in January. And when schedules change, we'll try and line those up so it works out. And hopefully you folks can join us. For the month of December, if you join us during that time, we usually take donations live on Twitch. And people have been nice enough to give us money. It's really fun. It's fun for us. I don't know if it's fun for you to give us money, but we appreciate it. But for the month of December, all those donations are going to go to Make-A-Wish. We have a goal of $200, and we're really, really hoping that we can hit that. So come and watch us and toss some money to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And Robin has made me swear that if we get to our goal of $200, I'm going to shave into a mustache and grow it into a curly mustache, which I will look ridiculous. So don't know if that's incentive for you folks, but definitely help out with the Make-A-Wish Foundation because I love them and I think they're great. So
cool.
I think that's just about everything that we got for you guys. Do you want to do the sign out or should I?
Yeah. Keep on creeping on and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.